All right, so take a look at the date on your phone.
Tuesday, February 24th.
Yeah, 2026. And if you follow politics or, frankly, even if you just accidentally scroll past the news on your feed, you know exactly what tonight is.
It's the big show, the State of the Union address.
The ultimate pageant of American democracy, right?
Absolutely.
And usually when we talk about this, we analyze the speech, we look at the applause lines, who is sitting next to whom. But tonight, I want to look at the room itself.
Because the room is the vulnerability.
Exactly. If you turn on the broadcast later, you are going to see a truly terrifying amount of power concentrated in about 4,000 square feet. You've got President Trump, obviously, the vice president,
The Speaker of the House.
Joint Chiefs, the Supreme Court justices, the cabinet.
It is essentially the entire leadership of the United States federal government in one room. And from a security perspective, it's just a nightmare. It is, without a doubt, the single greatest vulnerability in the American continuity plan.
Which brings us to the only person who actually matters for our story today.
Right.
The one person who isn't in that room. The designated survivor.
Or, as the military sometimes prefers to call them, the sole survivor.
And look, I know everyone's mind immediately goes to the TV show. Kiefer Sutherland.
Oh, yeah, the explosions, the drama.
FBI agent suddenly becoming president. It makes for great television. But the reality we are diving into today is actually stranger and much quieter than the fiction.
Because it's happening right now.
Exactly. Right now, while the rest of D.C. is putting on ties and getting ready for the cameras, there is one cabinet secretary, probably someone you frankly haven't thought about in 6 months, who is being effectively erased from the map.
Swept away to a highly classified location, a bunker or a military base, completely stripped of their normal communications and handed the literal keys to the kingdom.
Including the nuclear codes.
Including the nuclear code.
That is the part that always stops me cold. We are talking about a person who usually manages, farming subsidies or veteran housing loans, suddenly holding the power to end civilization.
It's a massive psychological burden.
It really is. And we have a fantastic stack of sources for our deep dive today to unpack all of this. We are pulling from historical accounts in Garrett M. Graff's book, Raven Rock.
Great book.
Incredible details in there. We also have interviews with former survivors like James Nicholson and Alberto Gonzalez. And we're looking at some very specific reporting on the context of tonight, this 2026 address.
And I think what we really need to do here is bridge the gap between that Hollywood image and the cold, hard logic of continuity of government. Because when you peel back the layers, this isn't just about protecting one person.
Right.
It's about the terrifying question of whether the American government can actually survive a decapitation strike.
So let's go back to the beginning, because this wasn't always a formalized thing, was it? I mean, in the early days of the Republic, they didn't hide the Secretary of State in a cave every time the president gave a speech.
No, not at all. This is very much a product of the nuclear age. Specifically, the later, more paranoid years of the Cold War. You really have to put yourself in the mindset of intelligence planners in the late 1970s and early 1980s.
Okay.
The timeline for the end of the world had drastically shrunk.
Shrunk how exactly?
Well, back in the 50s with bombers, you had hours of warning. But by the late 70s, the intelligence community realized that Soviet nuclear submarines stationed off the Atlantic coast, places like the Bermuda Rise, could launch missiles that would impact Washington in roughly 10 minutes.
10 minutes? I mean, I live in D.C. You can't even get across the Key Bridge in 10 minutes on a Tuesday.
You can't even get a cup of coffee in 10 minutes. So the realization was incredibly stark. If a launch was detected, there was physically no time to evacuate the president, the VP, and the Speaker of the House. They would die.
Wow.
The government would be decapitated before the Secret Service could even get the motorcade moving.
That is just a chilling thought, just the pure physics of it. So the only solution is to make sure someone important is already gone.
Precisely. It was the Carter and Reagan administrations that really formalized this failsafe. Around April 1980, the White House Military Office basically tasked FEMA with figuring this out.
Tasking FEMA with the end of the world.
Right. And it's wild to think about FEMA essentially building a shadow government roster from scratch. They weren't just picking a name out of a hat. They were trying to find someone who could legitimately claim constitutional authority if the Capitol turned into a crater.
And for a long time, this was top secret, wasn't it? They definitely didn't announce who the survivor was beforehand.
No, it was strictly classified information. It actually wasn't until 1981, with Reagan's education secretary, Terrell Bell, that the public even found out who it was. and that was only revealed after the fact.
But obviously, in the modern information age, that secrecy has totally
Oh,
evaporated.
it's completely gone.
Now it's practically a parlor game. As soon as the coverage starts tonight, you will see it on social media. Political junkies checking off the list.
Oh, yeah.
I see defense. Wait, where is the Secretary of Energy?
Like, where's Waldo, but with incredibly high stakes. And Garrett M. Graff actually talks about this psychological hook in Raven Rock. He argues that the public is fascinated by this role because it combines two very powerful things: our inherent fascination with the apocalypse, the ultimate what-if scenario,
Right.
and this uniquely American romance of the everyman.
Oh, like the King Ralph scenario.
Exactly. It's the Cinderella story, but with ICBMs. The idea that a random official, a regular person who usually deals with endless bureaucracy, could suddenly be thrust into the role of saving the free world. It is the ultimate underdog story.
But the vibe of that underdog story has really shifted over the years. I was reading through the accounts of the survivors from the 90s versus the post-9/11 era, and honestly, it feels like two different planets.
It really is a tale of two eras.
Take Dan Glickman, for example.
Yeah.
He was Bill Clinton's agriculture secretary, and he was the designated survivor for the 1997 State of the Union. His bunker experience was, well, he basically just went to visit his daughter in Manhattan.
Just a nice little trip to the city.
He literally said, and this is a quote, I don't even think anybody told me to be careful, he's just wandering around New York grabbing dinner while the rest of the government is sitting in the House chamber.
And then you have Bill Richardson. He was Clinton's energy secretary in 2000. This one is probably my favorite example of that relaxed era. He didn't go to a bunker at all. He just moved up a planned weekend trip to Oxford, Maryland.
Which is, what, an hour and a half from D.C.?
Maybe 80 miles tops. He went there to grab a roast beef sandwich and watch the speech on TV in a rental house. That was the continuity plan for the most powerful nation on earth. A guy with a sandwich in Maryland.
It sounds so incredibly naive now, doesn't it? Like a snow day for cabinet members. Hey, you don't have to go to the speech tonight. Just go have a sandwich.
It really reflects the geopolitical climate of the 1990s. The Cold War was over. The war on terror hadn't really begun yet. The threat of that decapitation strike felt like ancient history to a lot of people.
But then, obviously, September 11 happens.
And the world changes overnight.
The shift is so jarring. You go from roast beef sandwiches to, well, let's talk about Alberto Gonzales. He was George W. Bush's attorney general and the survivor in 2007. This is firmly in the post-9/11 world.
The protocol had tightened immensely by then. Gonzales didn't get to go visit family. The White House chief of staff gave him options for where to hunker down, and they were all secure, highly classified locations.
Yeah.
Gonzales actually chose to be mobile.
Right. He went to Andrews Air Force Base and boarded a plane.
Yes.
And this is the detail from the sources that really stuck with me. He gets on this plane expecting maybe a couple of Secret Service guys to keep him company, but that is not what he found.
No, not at all. He found representatives from every major department and agency waiting for him,
Just sitting there in the cabin.
sitting there with thick binders. And that is the visual I really want people to grasp today. These binders are stuffed with executive orders, emergency protocols, declarations of martial law things that have already been drafted.
Just waiting for a signature.
Exactly. It wasn't just a security detail. It was literally a government in a box.
That is heavy, and Gonzales said it hit him right then. He's sitting on the tarmac or in the air looking at these people who are completely ready to take orders from him the second the signal from the Capitol cuts out.
Right.
He said he asked himself, would I be up to governing a wounded nation?
Governing a wounded nation. We really need to pause on that phrase, because I think that's the part the movies always skip over. We focus on the dramatic swearing and the swelling music, the sudden rise to power. But if the designated survivor actually becomes president, it means the unthinkable has happened.
It means everyone is dead.
It means the legislative branch is gone, the judicial branch is gone, the executive branch is gone. You aren't just stepping into the Oval Office, you are stepping into a massive vacuum.
Yeah. Who confirms your new cabinet?
Exactly. Who passes the emergency funding you need? The legitimacy of the government itself would be in total question. You're not just a president. You're a survivor trying to convince a deeply traumatized population that the government still exists.
It shifts the tone from cool trivia to existential nightmare very quickly. And speaking of that nightmare, we have to talk about the physical experience of it. Where do they actually go now? We mentioned bunkers, but what does that look like?
Oh, Raven Rock gives us some incredible details here. There are a few primary sites. The most famous is Mount Weather in Virginia, and then there's the Raven Rock Mountain Complex in Pennsylvania, which is often called Site R.
Site R. That sounds straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It basically is. It's a hollowed-out mountain.
Yeah.
We were talking about massive blasted doors, underground reservoirs, power plants, entire cities built inside solid granite.
Wow.
When Survivor goes there, they aren't sitting in a nice hotel room. They are deep underground, breathing recycled air, surrounded by industrial equipment and military personnel. It is a very visceral reminder that the world above might cease to exist.
And yet, right in the middle of this high-tech dystopia, there is this weird attempt at normalcy. We have the account from James Nicholson, the VA secretary under Bush, who was the survivor in 2006.
Nicholson's story is so incredibly human. He gets flown by helicopter to one of these sites. He actually said he didn't even know where he was going until he was up in the air.
Blindfolded, basically.
Pretty much. He gets set up in a command center with all the screens and the secure phones, and then dinner is served.
The last meal.
Essentially, yes.
Wow.
The White House mess personnel were actually there, and they served him a prime rib. He described it as wonderful.
There is something so bizarrely domestic about that. He's sitting in a hollowed-out mountain waiting for the apocalypse, and he's eating a steak. He said, and this is a quote, "It made you think that at least if this awful thing happened, you'd be well fed."
It's dark humor, absolutely. But it focuses the mind. Nicholson said while he was eating, he was praying, and not just for the country. There was a specific detail he mentioned that really brings the horror of the situation home.
His wife.
His wife was attending the State of the Union.
Just think about that for a second. He is the insurance policy. If the phone rings, if he becomes the most powerful man on earth, it means his wife is likely dead, along with all his friends, his colleagues, his political rivals.
It personalizes the tragedy in a way that policy papers just can't. Nicholson joked later that the former survivors don't have a club, but they really should. I imagine it's a very specific type of trauma, spending 3 hours actively preparing for the death of everyone you know.
It really is. So let's bring this right up to the present. Tonight, February 24, 2026, President Trump is about to speak. The vibe in the country is, let's call it complex.
That is a very diplomatic way to put it. We are looking at a second-term Trump presidency right now. The reporting from the ABC News Washington Post poll shows his approval rating is hovering around 39%.
Which is quite low for this point in a term.
And 60% disapprove of how he's handling the second term. So the country is polarized. The administration is underwater politically speaking as they try to sell these plans to skeptical midterm voters. Now imagine the wounded nation scenario in that context.
You mean a continuity event happening when a huge portion of the country already distrusts the government?
Exactly. If you have a designated survivor, someone nobody voted for, stepping up to lead a polarized, angry nation after a massive catastrophe, the challenge of maintaining order would be infinitely harder than it was in, say, 1950.
And it's not like the threat is just theoretical either. We've had reminders recently that the machinery of survival is dangerous all by itself. I'm thinking about the accident from just last year in January 2025.
That was a really tragic wake-up call. A military helicopter collided with a regional jet near Reagan National Airport. It was a horrific accident.
Yeah.
But the detail that kind of got buried in some of the initial reporting was the actual mission.
The helicopter was on a continuity run, right?
Yes, it was a continuity of government training mission. They were practicing exactly what we are talking about today, moving VIPs and assets around the capital region to ensure the government survives in a crisis.
That really strips away the game aspect of it for me. These aren't just paper drills in a binder. Real people are flying real aircraft, taking real risks just to practice for a scenario we all hope never happens. It's not just a guy eating a steak in a bunker. It's pilots flying risky maneuvers in crowded airspace.
It highlights that the system is always churning in the background. It never sleeps.
So do we have any idea who this survivor is for tonight, or is it still completely under wraps?
As of this morning, there's no official announcement. They usually keep a very tight lid on it until the speech actually begins for obvious security reasons. But if you're placing bets, look at the Veterans Affairs Secretary.
Why the VA? Is it just because they are lower down the line of succession, so they're less likely to be missed in the room?
That's part of it, certainly, but it's mostly about their assets. Think about what the VA actually is. It is the second largest federal department after the Department of Defense.
Right, it's a huge bureaucracy.
But more importantly, it has a nationwide network of hospitals, clinics, and logistics chains. They have doctors, they have secure communications, they have boots on the ground in every single state. If Washington is gone and you need to coordinate a medical response or a logistical response across a broken country, the VA is actually uniquely set up to do that.
That makes so much sense. It's not just about the title of president, it's about the plumbing of the government. You want the guy who already has the keys to the hospital.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We saw Doug Collins, the VA secretary, serve as the survivor back in March 2025. It's a highly strategic choice.
So bring it all home for us. We've got the history, the hollowed out mountains, the terrifying logic of the 10-minute warning. When you tune in tonight, what should be going through your head?
I think we need to appreciate the profound paradox of this role. This is a person who starts the day as a relatively anonymous official. They go to work, they have meetings, they deal with budgets, and their ultimate goal for the night is to remain anonymous.
Success is defined by absolutely nothing happening.
Right. But for those 3 or 4 hours, they are the single most important insurance policy for American democracy. They are the fragile bridge between the republic we have and the chaos that could follow. And that is a incredibly lonely, heavy burden to carry, even if you were just sitting in a secure room watching CNN.
It changes how I look at the broadcast completely. We focus on the president, the pomp, the circumstance, but the real story of the resilience of the government isn't in the Capitol tonight. It's in a bunker somewhere under a mountain with a person who is probably cutting into a T-bone steak and hoping to God that the phone does not ring.
And hoping they don't get a promotion, because that promotion comes with a cost that is almost impossible to quantify.
Please, let me just stay the secretary of whatever. I do not want the top job today.
Exactly. And I'll leave you with one final thought, something that kept coming up in the source material, but we rarely discuss openly. We talk all the time about the system surviving. But can a system actually reboot from a single backup drive? If we lose the Congress, the courts, and the entire executive branch, is one person with a binder enough to put Humpty Dumpty back together again?
That is the truly terrifying question. The system is designed to survive, but can it actually function?
That's the gamble we take every single year.
Well, on that cheerful note, seriously, when you tune in tonight, play the game. Look at the crowd. Spot the missing face. And spare a thought for the poor soul with the binder.
And let's hope they enjoy their steak in absolute peace.
Amen to that. Thanks for going on this deep dive with us. We'll be watching right along with you.
Stay safe.